Okay, let's take a moment to take us now to Osun State, where Femi Akonde is standing by. Femi, what's happening and what updates do you have for us?
Hi, Olamide. Abosede. Well, slowly but surely, the process is beginning to unravel. We're seeing more registered voters come to this particular polling unit, and I told you earlier, this is also a rack center where election materials were stored earlier, and they have been deployed, to other polling units across the Osogbo metropolis, for voting to start at exactly 8:30 a.m. But let's get the perspective of an election observer, Celestine Odo, from the Nigerian Civil Society Situation Room. This organization, is always on the front line pushing for electoral reforms and, also monitoring the electoral process in Nigeria. How is this particular election different? We've seen elections, we've seen off-cycle elections, but it appears this seems to be quite different.
Oh, yes, I agree with you. Good morning. Yeah, the election here is quite competitive, looking at what we've been seeing and the processes leading today, which is the D-Day. It's quite competitive compared to the Ekiti election that was held. So what we are seeing here is political parties really out in competing for this governorship position. But the challenge we are seeing, the fear, is the political violences that led to today, which shouldn't be happening in a democracy. That is also a kind of deterrent for citizens who are expected to come out today and cast their vote. So if the environment is not conducive, is not suitable for citizens to come out to vote, if the fear, keeps them away from voting, then that's a challenge.
But do you think that would have a significant impact? Because we've seen a deployment of security across the state. We've seen the statement from President Bola Tinubu. We've heard from the Inspector General of Police. We've seen this kind of deployment. Don't you think that would give the electorate a guarantee of safety?
Yes, definitely. That's a boost. That's a huge boost. Giving citizens the confidence that the security are out there and all that. But at the same time, the level of when the security deployment becomes too huge is also a challenge. It becomes sort of fear for the citizens. But we hope, given the level of political awareness here, we hope that the citizens will still come out today to cast their vote. But what we are seeing here, like where we are standing, you can see there's no logistic challenge. The materials are being deployed. They started on time and all that. So they already started setting up. So we are hopeful that today will be quite proceed well.
Yeah, you talked about political awareness. Let's dwell a bit on this political awareness now. How well were the people sensitized? How well do they even know the voting process? It's too early in the day now to talk about the voter turnout, though we've seen a couple of them come here to look at the register. But so far you have followed the process. How well did not just INEC now, including political parties and civil society organizations like yours, how well did you do in sensitizing the people?
That's a huge gap. That's a huge gap. When you look at political parties in terms of carrying out that awareness, political education, sensitization, is a gap in political parties. Is a gap that is even the civil society organizations like ours that are bridging. INEC is trying, but it's still not adequate. And overall, even beyond Osho, is a huge gap for us in Nigeria. And it's an area that the political parties should devote time, energy, and resources, mobilize. You can't say, I'm a member of a political party, and you don't even understand the processes, of voting. You don't even understand what the political parties stand for and all that. So it's a huge challenge. But we keep pushing and enlightening the citizen, taking different steps in terms of doing that. But leading to this election, I think there's a huge awareness, political awareness among the political parties, the citizens, and INEC did their own gap.
Well, I hear you. Concerns were raised earlier about INEC's logistic arrangement. We saw that they later on, they had this delay in the deployment of sensitive and non-sensitive materials across the 30 local governments in the state. And not a fault of theirs, but do you think they could have done better?
No, they could have done better, but they can't ignore court order. So they have to do, and that was the source of the delay. But even at that, as a Thursday, the materials were here by Friday. They started.
That happened Thursday night, late into early Friday morning. But is that enough to cause a kind of delay or impact on their whole logistic arrangement?
No, definitely it can impact. And that is why we're here. But looking at what is happening here, it doesn't seem, to be a challenge here. But we don't know what is happening elsewhere. But definitely, this is just an off-cycle election. One state election, a state that is not even as huge as others. So if we should experience that here, then it's a red flag for the general election coming up in 2027. But as you know, logistics has always and continue to be a major challenge for INEC. If you look at the mandate of INEC, their work, logistics constitute conservatively up to 70% of their work. So, and this continue to be gaps, from one election to the other. But what we see is that any election is a new beginning. Any election is a new beginning and is a learning. But the question is, INEC as an institution, to which extent does the past election inform the subsequent ones? And this can only be better done through auditing the processes, of the past.
They've done well in that regard.
No, it has not been going on well.
All right, then. Thank you so much, Mr. Celestine. I appreciate your insight. Well, Lifemi, here, that's the perspective of an election observer from the Nigerian civil society election situation room here. Telling us about the whole process. And, well, he gave us quite some interesting perspectives here, Lifemi.
And it's an interesting one, really, Femi. Thank you for that one. We're following very closely, especially when you mention INEC's preparation vis-a-vis the court judgments that made them reprint millions of ballot papers and election results in the build-up to this election. We have to wait and see what those deployments really look like before we can tell whether INEC, was affected or not. Femi Akonde live for us at Aleku Wado in Oshobo.